These are my thoughts after beating Octopath Traveler 0. So not only is this going to be a post-game video for 0, but I'm also going to compare to Octopath Traveler 1, Octopath Traveler 2, and share some of my predictions for Octopath Traveler 3. So I actually have a blog post about that. I think I even made a video talking about it, but I wanted to kind of include it here because I just think it's super interesting, and considering the fact that I've played all the games now, I wanted to kind of relook on what that kind of meant to me. So I started playing the series with Octopath 1, obviously, and I didn't actually play it right off the bat. I didn't play it on the Nintendo console where it came out. I played it on Xbox because I think it was on Game Pass. And so I played it, fell in love with it. I always liked JRPGs. I mean, I loved Legend of Dragoon, for example. And so playing these kind of games are really up my alley. And it just took me a long time to get into Octopath. And when I played it, I felt very elated. I had a lot of great experiences with the first game. And while there was some gripes with it, like some of the combat could be kind of tedious, and I've tried twice now to beat Galdera in the first game, and yet I couldn't do it. I don't know why. I got super close one time, and it takes like 2 hours to actually get to that point. And so after trying a couple times, I think a couple times on my first playthrough, let alone on my second playthrough as well. So I even did meta strategies. I had grinded for a while. I think at least late 60s for most of my characters except for Alphen. Alphen was like 58 or 62, something like that. So he was a little under level, but everyone else was high level, good weapons. I tried to use, at least the second playthrough, I tried using my nuts appropriately. Whereas in Octopath Traveler 2, maybe because of the difficulty curve, I beat the final boss, and Secret Boss even, on the first try without any issues. Maybe it's the boss rush before Galdera in the first game. Now, mind you, I'm going to be talking about a lot of spoilers in all three games, so if you haven't played any of them, this might not be the right video for you. Come back when you played the games. But I'm starting off with Octopath Traveler 1 because that's where I started in the series. And then when Octopath Traveler 2 came out, I actually kind of had to wait a little bit, but I did play the demo. I even live streamed the demo, which I'm not necessarily streaming as often, so that was kind of a big deal for me. And in both games, for some reason, I was really attracted to Tressa as a main character. I thought that she was more interesting to me. I think I was also kind of like thinking Ulbrich, but for the most part, I was like, I want to try Tressa. Something about her kind of just clicked, and so she was my first character. So I kind of made a tradition from then on to always pick the merchant. And so I went with Particio in Octopath Traveler 2, and it was interesting to me because it turns out like the merchants are some of the meta people where you can get a lot of JP really quickly, you can get a lot of money really quickly, and being able to buy things was really important. And I actually had a better experience with Octopath Traveler 2. After beating 0, I just faced the final boss, not the secret boss, but the final boss, the first secret boss with the whole 36-person battle. Spoiler. That one, I beat that in Octopath Traveler 0, but I have not done the final one. I hadn't gotten around to it yet. I just beat the final one. So I was like, I don't want to do I want to save a little bit of time. But I feel like, in my experience, that out of all three, Octopath Traveler 2 is the best. Just like the story was better in a lot of ways than 1. I think the story is actually more fluid in 0. They did a better job at making things cohesive, but you only have one main character, really, and all the other characters are secondary. Whereas with the point of the Octopath Traveler series is having those 8 travelers together, and I think that 2 just did the best at doing that. And so that is something I really wanted to share because I like all 3. In fact, I really loved 0. I spent 70 hours with it, and I think that even that is probably pretty low, considering it's probably going to take me another hour to beat the final boss, and then probably another 30, 60 minutes to finish collecting everything. I got all the music scores. I don't know if I've opened up all the chests, and I haven't done all of the battle tested weapons. I want to try to get all the achievements if I can, and I think I'm only missing. I'm missing 3 secret achievements. One of which is just completing all of them. One of which is getting all the battle tested items, and so I think there's only one more that I'm missing. So speaking of achievements, I've played Octopath 1 and 2 3 times now, and 2 of them were full party doing everything. Or actually, I think Octopath Traveler 1 I've done 4 times because I tried doing a solo run and a speed run, and I actually tried doing them both at the same time, and it didn't work. And so ironically, I was trying to do Therion as a solo speed run, and I thought stealing would be better than purchasing because at some point you could just save scum if you have to. At some points, not having enough money could be a detriment when you're trying to be fast. And by the time I finished his first or second chapter, I realized that he's not going to be able to do a solo run. And so I was like, okay, let me go grab a couple other characters real quick, and then I'll do his third and final chapters and try to be as fast as possible. And I think you have like 8 hours to do a solo run, and I did it in 7 hours and 50 minutes. Like I really cut it close. And that was because I tried to do that if I had started from the beginning as a like non-solo speedrun, I would have been fine. But then I switched to Ulbrich, and so I tried playing it again. I got to his final boss and tried over and over and over again to beat him and couldn't. And it was just funny to me because Ulbrich, I guess, ends up being like the worst person to do a solo run for, and Tressa ironically being the best. So I didn't actually beat the solo run because I got to that final boss. I gave him every chance I could, doing the second hit, like a 50% chance of retaliating hits and doing a second turn, the patience one, I think is what it was. And there was also another skill where you could have like an extra turn at the beginning of the battle. I did all that so I can get extra turns. I had him as an apothecary, so I had the extra health in the axe. So I had like a multi-hit attack for the axe, I think, something like that. Maybe that's an Octopath too, I don't remember. But I did everything I could to extend his life longer and longer. But his final boss has a one-hit KO move, and it just really made it hard. Ironically, the solo run that I did in Octopath Traveler 2 was Hikari. So again, the warrior's not the best option because the final boss is ridiculous. And so I'll get to Octopath Traveler 0 here in a second, but I wanted to share this with you because it was fascinating to me that I managed to do it with Hikari. And it took me like 2 weeks to fight his final boss. And for those who might have forgotten, who don't know, the final boss is weird. You have a mini boss at the beginning, which you have to beat, but then you couldn't save after that, which was like, oh, you can't save the rest of these battles. And then the battles goes first phase of the main boss, a mini boss, and then second phase of the main boss. And both of those phases are extremely hard on their own. And they have different weaknesses and different moves. And I think both of them have one hit KOs, but at least this one on the first phase, it's more of like he'll get you down to 1 health at the very least. And then the second phase has one hit KOs that skips that 1 health and just kills you. And so if you don't have the right luck or RNG, you're kind of screwed. And with Hikari, you can learn moves, which you could do in 0, which is kind of nice, and we'll get to that kind of idea in a minute. But with Hikari, you can learn like up to 5 moves. You can have type coverage when it comes to magic, and you can have type coverage when it comes to weapons. And there was actually a couple spells where you could have magic attached to your weapons. So I did like a darkness spell. So I would have an axe attack, but then I could also do a magic too on top of that. So I had the axe multi-hit so that way it could break his shields, but then I could also have darkness on top of that so it would do a magic attack and it would do a decent amount of damage even before breaking the shield. Because I was trying to calculate how much damage it was, like 300,000 health or something like that. And I managed to finally do that. And then I tried doing Throne A, but that just didn't end up happening once I got to her final boss. And it was interesting to me because like these solo runs kind of defeat the purpose of the Octo naming convention, but it's really fun to do. And I'm actually really excited to think about like how would a solo run work in Octopath Traveler 0? That is insane because it's already hard enough to get through all those chapters. Like that game is long. It's it is really really long, even with a full party, let alone the 30+ characters. And if you have just that one character, I just don't know how that's going to work. I mean, especially with the temporary people coming into your party, I don't know how that would count towards if you're doing a solo run or not. Like, do you just make them, faint and not have any health and just not fight with them at all? That could be it. But it's interesting to me that like there's a lot of things that this game has potential for replay value. So when it came to Octopath Traveler 1, I think there was a lot of really cool things that they did, and they did it differently too, because each game has different jobs, and each game has different characters too. I mean, obviously the main characters from the first game are in 0, but ironically, besides a couple of them, they're actually not that useful for the most part. Ulbrich was really nice, and you have to use him for surpassing power, but he is definitely not the best warrior in the game. Tressa is one of the best merchants, and her ultimate's actually pretty good, and then Honnet's supposed to be one of the best breakers. But when it comes to like Cyrus, I only ever really played with him in the last battle. And like it was really funny because he had his ultimate, which was 2 fire, 2 lightning, 2 ice, and I needed to do at least 2 of those magics for the breaking of the enemy. And then he did a rechant and did it again, which was really cool. I like that. But in the first game, those special jobs were really awesome, having the like Warbringer and the Sarsteer, that kind of thing. And in the second game, they had different ones, which was really cool. And so I was actually thinking about in Octopath Traveler 3 some of my predictions for the different characters. And I want to get into this because it's really interesting that some of these predictions came true in 0, because I made this post before 0. So the warrior would be like a paladin or a barbarian. And the paladin ended up being like Xanthos and Rondo, and even technically Viator. And so it was really kind of cool to me that like Xanthos was this paladin. He was essentially like Crick from, or I guess Rondo was more like Crick from Octopath Traveler 2. And so that's super cool that like this idea kind of came into fruition. For the scholar, you would have like a novice scholar or a witch doctor. Now the witch doctor didn't really come through, but there was kind of some witchy people, and the novice sorcerer was kind of what some of these characters were in the game. I can't really think of any particular character that kind of think of it. Like even like some of the other people were at least somewhat experienced, like Zerk or whatever. And here's another one, the merchant, a pirate or a black market fencer. And I don't think we really had the black market, but we definitely had the pirate. Eltrix is definitely a pirate. And that's like, oh my god, it's perfect. I mean, she's not really a merchant. She's technically a captain, but I think half of her set is merchant, and the other half is like warrior or something like that. And so the next one is apothecary, which would have been like a necromancer or monk, which I thought was kind of cool. It didn't really quite work out, but yeah, that's kind of cool. Let's see. Thief, Robin Hood. You can kind of say that Bargello is like that, but not really. But yeah, the hunter would be like demon hunter or bounty hunter. Kind of having a bounty hunter is in the game, but not really. And then the dancer, a shaman or blade dancer, we kind of had that a little bit, not quite, but kind of cool. And then cleric would be like a paladin or shaman, which we definitely had shaman with like pious or whatever, and so that's kind of cool. And so having these different character ideas was really cool, and I was wondering like what the next game is going to hold. So I also thought about the special jobs. All four special jobs in the first game and the second game were all separate, and so that was kind of cool. That's where the witch doctor idea came from the second game's special job. But so an alternative to the War Master or Arms Master, you had the Raid Master, and so the Raid Master is kind of that sense of urgency, high DPS, but speed and accuracy too. And so instead of the Rune Lord or the Conjurer, you had the card dealer, which was kind of like, oh, that's kind of interesting, like a little poker card dealer. You almost, I almost feel like, what was that electricity guy's name in Octopath Traveler Zero? Oh, I don't remember. He's the dancer guy, but I don't remember. He almost kind of gives me card dealer vibes. And then you also had kind of that Jester, which was one of the villains too. You had the Sorcerer Arcanist. The alternative to that one would be the Apprentice. And so I don't even know where I was kind of getting from this, but I guess the Apprentice would be something akin to the One True Magic, or you have the uh, Ancient Magic from Octopath Traveler Zero. Instead of the Starseer or Venter, I also brought back the Demon Hunter idea because I think that was really unique. And so even though that could be the Hunter, it could also be a special job. And then instead of the so a new idea would be like a commander or alchemist. The commander would have more team-based support and having more kind of an orchestrating approach, which would be really cool. And the alchemist, which I thought was just kind of like, yeah, it's kind of what an apothecary is, but maybe have an even more potent. Like I was kind of surprised you had no concoct in Octopath Traveler Zero, and so maybe having a special job for concoct as a alchemist would be kind of interesting. So if you don't have that concoct as a skill for the apothecary, then you could have it as a special job, and that would be kind of interesting. So yeah, there was some interesting divergence there, and I even thought about the path actions because you have like the positive, the noble path, and the more negative rogue path in the first game, and then in the second game you had kind of that same system, but kind of instead of two pillars there was four, and so you had the day and night cycle on top of the noble and rogue. And then in the third game, the Octopath Traveler Zero, it really just didn't matter because you didn't have day or night, and you really didn't have a rogue or noble. It's just kind of there. So I kind of thought they kind of lost some of that value there. And the scaling problem is interesting because some people really get into the weeds and the numbers of the Octopath Traveler games, and so they level up really quickly because they just know how to break the system. And that's great, especially in the end game, but it kind of ruins the fun when it comes to the leveling curves. Like some people think that Octopath is too easy, and I definitely feel like in Octopath Traveler 2, I had that experience. Octopath Traveler 1 is rough enough where even if you're high enough level, you kind of have to still do a lot of damage. And unless you're doing like meta strats completely, you're kind of not gonna have to worry about the difficulty as much. It's gonna be pretty challenging no matter what. If anything, just tedious because you have to just kind of keep cranking out damage. Octopath 2, at the very least, had a little bit more skill to it, and in Octopath Traveler 0, I was kind of over leveled for the last third of the game. And so I beat the final boss on my first try, and it was like, I kind of wish I had more time with this 36 character battle because I ended up, having way too much BP because a lot of my characters weren't being used, which I think is part of the par for the course at that point when you have two rows. And I just kind of felt like, I didn't get a chance to actually use all these characters. There's a lot of characters who I never touched. I don't think I ever played with Solon or Eltrix or Richard. And I think I tried at one point. I just never got around to actually using them. And I wanted to actually replay some of the final battles with the Lightbringers characters because I was like, it's kind of what the story is about. Like they're the ones going into hell to do it. I kind of wanted to play with them, but I had my meta team. I had Raymay and I had Lorana and what is the I don't even remember what the scholar's name was. The girl, the one you get at the beginning of the game. She was like the best scholar, and I know that Cyrus is really good, and I know that some of the other scholars are kind of meta into their own ways. But she had everything I needed, and so I was like, okay, let me just crank her up as much as possible. Between the scholar and Raymay and Sasantos all having super high either attack damage or elemental attack, I didn't even need half the other characters for damage. I would just use these guys as a damage dealer, as a DPS, and have everybody else kind of be their own thing. I had two Lorana and Sarsi as the healers and like supports, and then I had my main character just kind of be an all in one, a polymath. And so it was just one of those things where like some of the other characters were just kind of filler at that point, and they were flex spots. So I really think that this series has a lot of potential to keep going on forward, having its own saga. I kind of want to play Live Alive, whatever it's called, and Bravely Default now because of the other. And I probably won't do Triangle Strategy because I don't really like those kind of Fire Emblem style games. But I want to play more games like this, and I think that the Octopath Traveler 3 ideas that I had, it's now kind of a dated post, which is interesting to me. Now looking back on it, like there's some things that are I wrote this post really well, I think, and I'm gonna link it down below if you want to check it out because I really love it. But this series left an impact on me. And I remember seeing a post on Threads recently about the postpartum game completion depression that you get. So you beat a game and you're like, oh man, like now I don't have this in my life anymore. I've spent, 3 days playing this game essentially, like 3 full days. And so it's been part of my life for the last few weeks. And it's interesting to me that like how much effort I put into it. I actually made a video on this channel talking about this. I started playing on the Switch version. I had issues with the Switch version, and on top of that, I wanted to play it on PC, so I wanted to switch over. But I had 30 hours on this game. I didn't want to lose that progress. I managed to be like one of the first people to transfer my save from the Switch version to the PC version. Someone else might have done it before me, but no one made any posts about it. Because when I looked it up, there was nothing out there. There was only one person talking about Octopath Traveler 1 doing that. And so I made a blog post about that too, if you want to check it out. But essentially, I managed to transfer my save from one console to the PC, and that was really cool. So there's a lot of really cool things about this, and I think that I might replay 1 and 2 again here. I don't know. I might give some time to like let it breathe a little bit. I'm really excited because I think that like being able to replay these games now with the context, at least Octopath 1, with the context of 0. I never played COTC, and I tried, but it was like I couldn't do it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about the series, and if you have any points debating about what I said in this video, let me know. Definitely be fun to kind of have a conversation about it. I love the Octopath Traveler games, and I wish I was streaming it, but I just wouldn't get around to actually playing it if I was streaming. So I wanted to kind of sink my teeth into it. Maybe now that I've beat it, I'll play it again. Maybe even do a solo run. I don't think I've seen anybody do solo runs of this yet, especially since the whole point of this game is having a whole much of characters. So kind of going against that grain might be kind of interesting. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thanks.